All right. Greetings and welcome. My name is Aaron Craig with Let's Learn This Together, and I believe I'm up and running. And this is my first stream with actually some new software, and since I think I built my computer, so there's a potential here for a lot of things to go wrong. So if anything doesn't sound right or look right, let me know and I can get that fixed. But the purpose of today's stream is actually really to have some interaction here. So if you're here, do leave some comments and talk, because that's the whole point of what I'm doing here. So if you didn't see, I actually am planning on writing a game development book. Probably, it's going to be specifically for Game Maker Studio with the new update, kind of focusing on all that. But I also want it to be a book for anyone to be able to get into game development. So what I'm looking for is feedback on the ideas that I've got so far. So even if you're watching this after the stream, I would still really appreciate your feedback and comment, or you can email me if you want to send me something very lengthy about what maybe you would be interested in. So that's what I want to do here, is really figure out what you guys are thinking, what would be interesting for you as a buyer for what might be out there, and what you think others might be interested in as well. Because there's a lot of books out there, but at least for Game Maker, there's really not very many right now. So if we jump over and we take a look at our Amazon, there's not really anything very recent, especially not with the new update since it came out like a week ago. But there's really not a whole lot out there. Ben's book, Heartbeast book, that's several years old at this point, and other than that, I don't think there's really a whole lot new that, at least for me, kind of captures my attention. So the goal that I really want to do is to write a book that beginners can do. And my initial idea is something like a 30 days to become a game developer. So the book isn't broken up into chapters or like learning Game Maker through like going through the functions or anything like that. Instead, it's broken up by exercises per day, because the best way to learn something is to continually do it. So my idea is 30 days of exercises that you do just one day at a time, maybe two if you want to really get ahead, but it's supposed to take maybe 3 to 4 weeks to actually complete the book, because by that time you're in a habit of working on your game. And that's one of the best things you can actually do, is to be in a habit of coding and developing. Because when you have that, then learning it is going to come along with it, and you'll actually make progress a little bit at a time, which is what you really want to be able to do. So like I said, there's not a whole lot out there right now. Here's the Amazon page for the books, and apparently some shadow magic, which comes up when you search Game Maker Studio too. That's weird. There's, really not much out there. Now, my goal, like I said, is to make it for beginners. So what is it that would interest you? Even if you're not a beginner, what is it that would actually interest you in buying the book? I put out a poll a little bit ago, what's the defining capturing feature of a book? And I think it was like 79% of the voters said it was the topic. And so I want to hear more from that. Like, what specifically about the topic? Is it going to be the title that tells you what the topic is and exactly how it's going to work? Can I say beginner to expert game developer in 30 days? Is that the topic for you? Or is the topic more of which software am I going to be using? Because what I've found is that the videos I make right now are for game developers using Game Maker, which makes total sense. That's what I use. But this book would be much more for any game developer or anyone who wants to start learning game developer, irregardless of engine. And that's kind of what I want. So how does the topic play into that for you? Kumar asks, how to survive as indie dev? I think that's a really great suggestion. Maybe something I can throw in this book, because being an indie dev, whether completely solo or in a small team, there's a lot that you have to survive there. That is for sure. There's, burnout, which if you've been working on anything ever, you've probably experienced. But then there's also the communication, the risk, the finances, the fact that you have to wear so many different hats to be able to be a marketer, an artist, an engineer, developer. You have to be the face of your company and be the one actually behind it making things. I think at the very least, that deserves something at the end, like, you know, as an encouragement to work on those things. I don't know if I'd want to, I don't know if I'm qualified to actually write a book on that. Like, I'm working on my own game and I've experienced a lot of those things myself, but I'm not sure if I'm quite qualified to actually write a book on being an indie dev, but it's definitely a good idea. So I will add that to what I am thinking about. So just to let you know, I am thinking about, I'm hoping to get this done relatively soon, which is why I wanted to do this stream now. My goal is to actually get this book out. Let me just go and switch to this since I'm not showing my screen. My goal is to get this book out probably in the next month or so. So I am going to get really focused and really work just on this project. Like, that's gonna be the main thing. My inventory series is up and scheduled to go, so I'm gonna have videos coming out for the next month and a half with just those alone. And I also plan on doing some beginner videos, and then I want to take the time that all those are coming up on a frequent basis to then be able to actually write this book and get it published. The goal with it is going to be to do Kindle direct publishing. I've looking into this, I've gotten some information from it, and it sounds like this is probably going to be the best way to do it. If you ever wanted to write a book then and you don't actually have a contract with like a big publishing house to print X amount of copies and like they pay you up front to write it, then self-publishing is actually a great field to look into because you can write anything and get anything published. And the really cool thing about KDP is that I can write my book and then I can get a certain amount of copies for the amount that it would actually cost just to print it, not the extra amount of retail. So I'm thinking of a couple different things here. I'm thinking of doing a Kickstarter for the book. Is that something that would interest you? Would you support writing a Kickstarter, or would you support me if I did a Kickstarter for like maybe 15 to 20 bucks to get a signed copy of the book? Is that something that would interest you, or would you give that to a friend? And if that was something that was actually put out probably by the end of this year, maybe for Christmas time, would that interest you? And oh man, I cannot say that name, but M asks, have you seen what time it is, little man? I think you are in a different time zone, good sir. It is only 2 p.m. where I'm at. I take it you're probably somewhere very else, somewhere very different. But that's my time. But you're up late, so have you seen the time? So Kickstarter, is that something that would interest you, and would you actually support me if I did a Kickstarter there? Second thing, let's see. I think I lost it there. I was on a roll, and then I got distracted by the question. So, oh yeah. And then, no, I think I still lost it. Give me just a second to think. Yes, that is actually a fact. Redheads do not have souls. That's why we have to eat others so that we can retain some of our humanity. But that's besides the point. I'm not trying to write this book to get your soul or anything. Unless you want to give that to me, that'd be fine. Oh man. These questions are throwing me off my game. I don't actually have like a list of things I'm trying to talk about. So direct publishing, self-publishing is really, really great. So I'm thinking of doing a Kickstarter to get that, and then I want to do some giveaways on the book as well. So like right now I'm giving away my course. So what I might do is do maybe once or just twice a month giveaway of my book. Is that something that would interest you? Would you want that? And would you actually have people that you feel comfortable or that you think would want to have a book about learning game development? Like, is that a field, or is that something that would interest people that you know or anything like that? And then I guess the other question is, what would you pay for a book to get into game development? Like, my idea is to be able to help someone, kind of like my beginner course, just in written form, because some people just learn a lot better that way. Is that something that you would pay for, or something that you would find yourself connecting with? Like, personally, I learn by doing, which is why I just like to create projects, and I learn by hearing and seeing what's happening. I'm a very visual learner, and that's just me. But there are a lot of people out there who like to just read. And so when it comes to video content, it's harder for them. And everyone has a different learning style. I think visual is a larger learning style. Like, a lot of people engage better when there's auditory and visual and you're actually doing it, but a lot of people also just learn by reading stuff. And is that you? And if so, what would you be willing to pay for a book that kind of takes you from no experience to be able to actually start making your own games? I'm not going to replicate my beginner games course. I want to do something fresh and new and take a different approach, but the idea is going to be the same. You don't need to have any experience at all. You just pick up the book, download the software, and then on day one, we're going to start coding and start creating sprites and learn rooms and levels and transitions. And by the end, you'll actually have your own little game that you can export and ship off and show to your friends and family. Like, that's kind of the big goal. So, all right, Em, that is a very interesting tidbit of advice that I did not think I ever needed to know, but I am glad that I learned it. So, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I don't have a huge agenda for this video. It's probably actually going to be pretty short. If you're here and you're listening, then let me know, because otherwise, I mean, that's really about what I want to do. You can look forward to a Kickstarter, because I don't see any downside of doing one. If you want, you can support me on there and get a signed copy of the book, and that'll get shipped out to you probably in the next couple of months, assuming everything goes well. I have someone who I am working with to do the layout, to do the artwork for the front, back, and the spine of the book. So I have all of that set up and lined out. All I've got to do is start writing. So I'm going to do that, get it done, and hopefully in the next couple of months actually get it out there. Yeah, so G2 asks, how about a volume series? Can you be a little more specific on what you mean by that? Are you referring to like writing a huge series of books that's like totally comprehensive coverage of GameMaker? Something, okay, so book one is something like an asteroid destroyer. And then you keep making book. Okay, so you're talking like replicating my courses, which is very similar to what I have, but in book form. A progressive book taking from beginners to advanced. Okay, that's. So if I was to do more than one book, I think that's where I would go. I think the largest audience I can hit is a beginner audience, but having a more intermediate book would also be very interesting, I think. In-depth 2D Metroidvania series from is that Anthony? Yeah. Yeah, I think, I don't know what kind of game it's going to be. I've already done several space shooters. I feel like I've kind of conquered the space shooter genre. Like, I'm not saying I know how to do all of it, but I'm saying I'm personally a little bored of doing asteroids and space shooters. Like, that's what my beginner course is, and then I also did a course for someone else that was that, and so I don't want to do that. So something else like a Metroidvania would be really interesting. Yes, I would definitely want to do something more along those lines. If you have ideas for specific ones, like I'm seeing shooters, RPGs, and an asteroid destroyer, which is kind of like a shooter. Granted, that is a really great way to build a game. Like, it's super simple. That's also the demo that Yo-Yo Games has on their like main website and that you can download, is a asteroid destroyer. So I don't want to copy that, because I want to leave that, you know, to be a standalone project that they can do on their own. But ideas for those would be really, really great. Could games made in yeah, they can definitely be, games made in GameMaker can be exported to any console or platform, including mobile. So the problem with doing a book on mobile gaming, like, you have to have the module, I think that's what they call it, to be able to export to it. You could make a game, and if you had a touchscreen, you could play it almost exactly the same. But if you actually wanted to put it on your phone, I think it'd be $150 to like $300 to buy the module to export it. And I would not want that to be a hindrance to people that actually want to pick up the book and start making stuff. I'd want it to be able to be as cheap as possible. Since GameMaker has a 30-day free trial, that's what I would do. I want to do some mobile gaming. That's actually a big thing on my list, but that's not something that I feel like I could do just yet. Cover topics. So oh man, what is that name? Jevin James. What? Oh, sorry guys. I'm using Streamlabs and it is not useful. It is not easy to move things around. Jeff and James, what's a specific topic that's not covered that you'd be interested in? Because there are lots of them out there, but a lot of times the reason they're not covered is because they're either too complex or very, very few people want to see them. So what's something that you'd actually want to see that's not covered? Strategy game, yep. I will visit Russia someday, all right? You send me your address and your social security. No, don't actually send me your address, and we'll come and hang out in Russia, and I'll pretend to be a bear. That'd be pretty weird, but it could be fun. Isometric strategy, yes. Gloomhaven, oh, I actually have Gloomhaven. That's a great game. I've actually thought about, like, if you've ever played Mage Knight as well, that's like an isometric strategy game with a deck building component in it. That would be really cool. Replicating a really in-depth board game inside of Game Maker is actually one of the things I really want to do. That would be really, really cool. That might be too much for a beginner project, but maybe not. If I had the right art assets, we could definitely do something like that. So an isometric strategy game, maybe like a board game, that's a great idea for the topic for the book. Actually, I can go back through the comments, but yes, that's a great idea. So Jeff and James, management games, team formations, sports games, strategy games. I don't think they're necessarily too advanced. Management games, like you're thinking like an RTS where you have to collect resources, build units, and then go to battle, but actually manage everything along the way, like micromanagement. Is that what you're talking about? Or are you talking more like kind of like an idle mobile game where you set things off and like it starts going, you have to manage how it functions or like what people are doing what? I'm not sure which one you're specifically more referring to, but yes, those things are not more like cook serve. I've seen Cook Serve Delicious, but I have not played it, so I don't know what it is. Is that a little bit like Overcooked? I've played Overcooked 1 and 2. Those are really fun games. Is it kind of like that, where you start things, you got to cook and manage things? M is, if you're following along in the chat, I have someone who really wants me to come to Russia, and they tell me I'm a bear, or I look like a bear. So, okay, when I come to Russia, I will try to say that, but I will not try and say that before. I have no idea what it means, and I'm not going to risk getting in trouble for that. So yeah, RTS games are a lot of fun. I love StarCraft. I played that my whole life growing up, so that's really fun. RTS is a little more complicated, but there's also nothing saying I can't provide like demos in the book that they can download, or like startup projects that they can like pick up halfway through, and I can explain how that works. Like, the idea is certainly possible of doing a little more complex stuff, something that's more interesting, because I know that there's tons and tons of beginner stuff out there, and a lot of times what you finish making, it looks okay, but it's very similar to everything else that's already out there. So if my beginner book actually covered a topic like an RTS or something, you know, like Cook Serve Delicious, or something that you don't see very often, that might be a draw in and of itself. Like, hey, you actually get to make a game that you don't really see anywhere else, or at least you don't get to see how to make anywhere else. That is absolutely something that could draw in people's attention. So that's something I will keep in mind. Twinamy? I mean, I don't think he's being rude, so it's okay. If he is, then I'm not actually sure if he is. So, but yeah, so okay, RTS, management games, something along the lines of that. And a volume series I think is also really interesting. Now, I will say that the book sales that I've seen across different places, so like if we come back and look at Amazon, we can see that even Ben's book, I think, is the best-selling one. It's got like 34 copies, and I've talked to Heartbeast about like his book and what he did it, and he says like it worked fairly well for the time. Like it actually did bring in some money, and he really enjoyed making it, but it's not something that actually brings in a lot of money. So I guess this one here, 214 reviews, might actually be the best-selling one that I've seen here. This was published in 2006 though, so it's been out for 14 years and is clearly not applicable to anyone using the software today. So, randomized, G2 says, a D&D game with randomized dice roll? I mean, okay. I don't know if you follow Baldur's Gate at all, like Baldur's Gate 3, the release and all that. I definitely plan on doing some gameplay videos of that because I'm super stoked for that game. But making a D&D-like game to have the freedom of actually being able to do anything you want is a massive endeavor. So I guess if it was really like limited in the scope of what we were doing, we could do something like a D&D game where you implement some randomness and like that. That would be very interesting. Yeah. Knights of Pen and Paper. I feel like I've played that game before. I'll have to check it out. Is that a mobile game or is that actually like a Windows game? I can't remember what it was. But you can see here that a lot of the books really don't sell that well. So unless I had a very large and interested audience, which I think if a Kickstarter would show me how large and interested an audience would be, then I don't know if I'd want to do anything more than just a single book, because the time and energy it's going to take into actually write a beginner book or even just any kind of game maker book is going to be kind of intense, and I imagine it's going to be a fair bit of work. I like writing. I don't think I talk about it at all anywhere else, but I am a fiction writer as well. I've been almost my whole life. So I really enjoy writing as a process, and I might want to do more than one game maker book, but a lot of it does depend on how well the first one would sell. So a Kickstarter would show me how much interest there is, and then like the first 3 to 6 months would actually show me if it's going to be profitable enough. I would love to do a larger series and be able to actually do that. That would be really cool. I just have to see that it's going to be worth it. Like, I can't actually see total sales on any of these books, but the number of reviews is a fairly good indicator. I don't remember what the math is. I know there's a Steam formula that you can like break down the number of wish lists versus reviews versus purchases and like get an accurate picture of that. I'm guessing there's something very similar to that when it comes to how well an item sells on Amazon. I don't know what it is, but like, to make it worthwhile, I definitely want to bring in enough money to be able to get something. So I don't need to become rich off of a book, but it also needs to not be a total waste of my time. Royalyn suggests do a part of a book that talks about story making that goes into a good game. Yeah, that's an interesting idea. There could be there's a lot of things to talk about when it comes to making games, like more than just the actual functioning and programming of it. So I like the ideas, like we had one up there, like the life of an indie dev and how to survive as one, how to craft a good story. I think it might be kind of interesting along with this book if it's more than just how to make a game, if there were inserts in between days or like at the end of a day, a couple paragraphs, maybe a very small chapter on these topics that you could refer to, or like as you're learning how to code, there's a story on indie dev life and what it's like, that frustration, all of that kind of stuff. I think that's a really good idea. Yeah, that's more work on my part, but at the same time, I feel like that would add a tremendous amount of value to a book, because I haven't actually bought any of these books out there, but I imagine most of them are just on how to make a game. And a lot of them are just on how to make a game. But there's so much more to making games than just actually coding, right? I'm sure you know that. Everyone who's tried to make a game knows there's a lot more to it than that. Okay. Yeah, shooting bears could be fun. I agree. Possible chapter topic from G2. When you know that your game is ready. Ooh, that's a great chapter topic. When you know your game is ready to share with friends. Yeah. I mean, I think the most basic answer for that is as soon as it can be played. Like, that's the motto of fail faster, which is something that I don't know if I've actually put out there, like as a specific video, but yes, that's definitely a huge, huge thing. Like, a lot of people get very nervous and scared to share their game, and yet it's one of the most important things you can do. It is better to work on a game for a month and get told it's garbage and it's not fun than work on it for 3 years and then get told it's garbage and no fun. So sharing it early on is great. Okay, yeah, keep throwing out ideas here for chapter ideas. This is really great. I like this. Game design, level design. Yep. Game design is, well, that's a whole course and a whole book in and of itself, but definitely something that would be worth packing in there. Yes, I actually have some experience working and researching game design specifically, so I feel like I could actually talk about that fairly well. Level design is not my strong suit. I may have my wife write something on that, because she's done pretty much all the level design that I do for my courses or my videos, and she's actually had communication with like proper level designers of other games. She's reached out and gotten advice. So I feel like she could write a chapter on that. So I may ask her about that. Would make a good fire. Oh, well, that's not very nice. Come on, Em. Don't be mean like that. You're gonna make me cry. So, okay. I think we're getting a good idea. I don't want to... I don't know. I don't think I want to double the length of the book by having like a chapter after every single day of exercises, but that may be something that would be worth it. And I could easily break them down into several, like they could be very topical, because we're going to have to do level design on some of the books, like on some of the days we're going to have to lay out. I'm going to teach tiling and auto tiling, and that would make sense where on those days there's extra stuff at the end about level design. I think it would be very easy to make every day have a topical section or a small chapter about that, where it's just talking about it. Yeah, that makes sense. I'll try that in the mirror later, Em. I don't trust myself right now. That sounds like a trick. It's like trying to say apple while holding your tongue. I know not to do that kind of stuff. Getting someone to talk about art for games. Okay, art for games, yeah. I do have a sister-in-law who is a professional artist, and if she'd be willing to actually write a chapter on that, that would be really cool. I think getting a little bit of cooperation would be cool. I don't know how much I want to do. Like, I can use my family and the resources I have near me. Would it be interesting, or would it add value to the book if I reached out to other developers and had them write a chapter on it? That makes it less work for me, but it also brings in more outside experience. Like, would you want to see a preface or just like a couple paragraphs on level design or game design or indie life from someone who's actually done that stuff, from other developers that you've seen on YouTube or other names that you know? Would that be something that would add value and that would, you'd pick it up just to hear what they have to say? So, hey Marty, what's up? G2, maybe not for the book, make a survival type game. Like, oh. Survival games are pretty interesting. I've played a good number of them. Some of them have definitely turned me off from the genre because it can feel very unrewarding and annoying. But at the same time, some of them can also be really, really good. So I think that would be tough. I don't know about for this book, but yeah, that would definitely be very interesting. It looks like we've got a couple people speaking another language now. I can't be a part of that. I don't know what's going on. Fill me in, Marty. What's happening in that? Yeah, I like the idea of reaching out and getting other developers, other game makers to write maybe a chapter like on a specific topic. I think that would be really cool if they'd be willing to do that. Yeah, there's enough topics, I think, out there that would be very interesting. Interviewing game artists. Oh, yeah. If you didn't know, I actually do have a podcast, and there's actually another episode coming out the 1st of September, so just like a week away, where I interview a solo game developer who I'm going to be doing a gameplay video for pretty soon called Stormwright. You can find him on like Reddit and pretty much anywhere, just Stormwright. But yeah, I have a podcast where I get to interview people, so that would also be really good context for me to get to reach out and talk to them. But yeah, interviewing game artists is a great thing. So Twinamy, I'm kind of the same mindset. I don't know how that would work. I'm guessing I could just ask people. Like, if someone wanted to write it, then they could contribute a chapter for my book. It would have to not be like some kind of revenue split, because if I had, 15 to 30 other people writing chapters for my book, then I'm going to not be making any money if we're sharing that money. It would just have to be something that they would be wanting to do, or maybe something that they've done in the past that I could pull and put in there. I think that would be really, really cool. Getting a large number of people to write from their diverse experiences would be really cool. So. Oh, a link to podcast episodes with someone else. So that's a really good idea. It kind of begs the question of like, should I then have a podcast for every single chapter topic, which I don't think I can do. It'd be a little too much. But for some of them, I definitely think I could. Like, if I had someone who I'd interviewed and then wrote me a chapter, I could definitely link to them and, give them credit for everything. So that would be cool. All right, so I really like what we've got here. I hope you're kind of excited for this. I am too. Be on the lookout for a Kickstarter coming soon for the book. I've got some really great ideas. Thank you everyone for tuning in and being so active. I feel like this was a really, really good conversation I got to have with you guys. And now I have a much better idea about where I'm going with this book. I need to actually make a decision on what topic or what kind of game I'm going to create inside of it. But I like the idea of having chapters that are topical after each day, reaching out to other game makers and developers and having them contribute to it, making it much more of a group project that has way more value than just me speaking into it. So that's kind of where I'm going. I feel like that's much more of a actual line that I can follow from here. The Kickstarter, I would say look for it within a week. I'll definitely put out a video when it's out there. I haven't started it at all, but I have done Kickstarters in the past. I know how they work, and I can make my own video content for it quick. So look for it within a week. I'm gonna have once I actually solidify what I'm writing, how it's gonna work, I'm gonna throw up that Kickstarter, link it out there, and see if I can just get it out there. People that contribute will get a signed copy of the book and maybe a couple other special things if I can think of anything worthwhile. And then I will probably be doing giveaways of my book once it's out. The goal is to have it out within the next 2 months is going to be my timeline. So G2 suggests create your game in 30 days. Yeah, I kind of like that. I don't know if it's deceiving or not because you're making my game, but it could still work. Yeah, cool. I will definitely let you know, Twinamy, then, and you'll hear about it for sure because I have to make noise about it for it to succeed. Royland says t-shirts. I have thrown around the idea of merchandise. I don't know would you be interested in merchandise like for my brand or my channel, or just game maker merchandise, or just game developer, or I don't know. Merchandise is a whole nother topic, whole nother video or series or book in and of itself. But if merchandise is something that you would be interested in, let me know. Just what would you want to see? Would you want to see t-shirts? I feel like I wouldn't want to do mugs or anything. There's so many coffee mugs out there, water bottles, hats. I don't know. What would be interesting? What would be unique? Let me know, because that would be kind of cool. I've thought about merchandise. Patreon does now have a integration with merchandise where they take care of the entire supply chain of it. I just design it, and then patrons or anyone, I guess, can buy it. So it's something that I'm considering. It's probably a couple months out, maybe by the time the book launches. So maybe with the Kickstarter, we'll see. I have not thought about it, but yeah. Cycling shorts. That is unique enough. Yes, I would probably wear those when I go running. Just a nice LLTT logo slapped across the butt. Ball caps. Yes. Yeah. That's a pretty common one, I think. So, cool. Keep masks. Well, I'm going to be an optimist and say that by the time I would have those in production, they are no longer necessary. Right? But maybe. That's a good idea. I think that's pretty cheap to do, so that would be pretty interesting. All right, you guys have fun with the talking about Putin and your moms. Be respectful, be nice, and yeah, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate that. Yeah, look for everything in the future, and that's what I've got for you. So keep making, keep learning, and I'll talk to you.